Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Horror Mine. My name is Vikshai, and this is the Scare Score, where I break down horror movies and rate them on how scary I think they are. In this episode, I'll be going over the highly anticipated Indonesian horror movie sequel, Satan Slaves 2: Communion. Once again written and directed by Joko Anwar, this movie follows Rini and her family following the events of the 2017 film. I'll be going over the events that take place throughout the film, while our scare score goes up or down based on how effective the scares are or attempt to be. 2017 Satan Slaves is one of the scariest Indonesian films I've ever seen, and I've been really looking forward to seeing what Communion has to offer. But how scary is it? Sit back and relax and join me as we explore Satan Slaves 2: Communion and tally up the scare score. Our movie begins in April 17 of 1955 with my favorite character from the first film, Indonesian Tommy Chong, Budiman. He's being escorted by the police to an unknown location and recognizes one of the officers whose face is hidden. They drive past several headstones and he realizes that things are about to get serious. He meets with Police Major Heru Kusuma, who shows him something mysterious and disturbing. This shot of Budiman slowly walking through the hallway, not knowing what he's about to witness, is haunting. He sees dozens of corpses wrapped in shrouds inside of a room, seemingly bowing to a portrait on the wall. The Major believes something sinister is afoot, but says that this incident must not go public due to an international conference taking place the next day. He asks Budiman to document the incident in the form of a fake newspaper or article so that some people will believe that it happened. As the camera pans out, we see several foot tracks leading into the building, accompanied by the red berries used by the fertility cult in the first film. The music intensifies and we see the portrait the corpses are bowing to is that of Mawarni, the ghost mother from the first film. This was a serviceable opening scene that properly sets up the tone and story for the rest of the movie. We are reintroduced to our main character Rini on April 15th of 1984. Rini is offered a college scholarship in Jakarta by her boss. She is hesitant to take it because she does not want to leave her family. In an intro similar to the previous film, Rini heads home as the opening credits appear on screen. She now lives in an apartment building where adhering to the elevator's personnel limit is merely a myth. Those Japanese subway push guys would really come in handy. We meet one of her neighbors, a young boy named Wisnu, and his deaf mother. She goes into the apartment and the film's title dramatically appears on screen. Bondi is now a teenager and has made himself a couple of new friends. He shows them what he believes to be pieces of gravestones left in the ground. His friend Ari's abusive father shows up and smacks him to the ground, which made me think of a similar scene in Kung Fu Hustle. Ari's mom is sick and lies in bed all day, which possibly gave Bondi PTSD about his own sick mom. Tony's got himself a new ride and has a crush on the apartment girl next door named Tari. She asks him to fix her radio, which will definitely become a scare device later on. Their father returns home from work carrying a mysterious suitcase that he locks in a cabinet. Bondi says that they never talk about what happened to them and are pretending that it never happened. Rini says that it will never happen again, but if that were true, she wouldn't be saying that in a sequel. She breaks the news that she will be attending college tomorrow, while the actual news warns of an impending rainstorm that is going to hit the area. Rini goes to take out the trash and all her neighbors seem extremely odd. That right there is the exact moment I'd be breaking my lease and moving somewhere else. A news report details 2,000 mysterious sniper killings since 1981. The victims were mostly men with tattoos and known criminals. Bondi sees Tony fixing the radio and asks if he's no longer scared of them. This is a reference to the scare scene involving Tony and his old radio in the first film. Once again, the tight-knit family dynamic is on full display, which makes what these characters go through so much more interesting. Wisnu goes to take out the trash but can't open the trash chute.
This is the part where you run away.
The trash gets stuck and he sticks half of his body in the chute to try and push it down. A sinister voice calls out to him, asking him to open the door. He manages to get out of the chute but doesn't get out of getting jump scared. He runs back into his apartment and puts the picture of his late father face down. This is presumably who was calling out to him and who appeared directly behind him. The camera pans throughout the apartment complex as a creepy song can be heard echoing throughout the building. As the siblings are sleeping comfortably in the living room, the television displays static and a familiar creepy face. Budiman receives a box full of evidence about the fertility cult gathered by Major Kusuma. The box contains weird trinkets, mysterious drawings, and pictures of individuals, including Rini's father. We also see pictures of different locations possibly important to the cult, with one of them being the apartment complex. The next day, Rini prepares to head to college and finds an old family photo album. As several residents wait for the elevator, a lady drops her coins on the ground, some of which fall into a crack beneath the elevator. This gets the attention of several young girls playing hopscotch nearby. There is a lot that goes on in this scene, so bear with me. Ari's abusive father insults his wife and once again puts hands on him. This causes Ari to run away and the father begins to chase him. The boys take off using the stairs and the dad gets onto the elevator. As Tony and his father are about to get onto the elevator themselves, the girl next door sees him and pulls him away. Another boy who has a crush on her confronts them, but they manage to tell him off. Wisnu gets onto the elevator with his mother and explains that the elevator must go all the way up before coming down to avoid getting overcrowded. The lift gets stuck, which leaves the bottom of the elevator wide open. The young girls take this opportunity to jump in and grab as many coins as they can. The overcrowded elevator begins to drop and Wisnu manages to escape through a small hole. Unfortunately, everyone else is unable to escape and the elevator crashes to the ground, tragically killing the occupants and the girls underneath it. This was an anxiety-filled scene with a gruesome and shocking end fitting of a Joko Anwar film. The image of the young girl drenched in the blood of her friends is absolutely haunting. That night, the loved ones of the elevator victims wrap their bodies in shrouds and prepare them for burial. Everyone in the elevator died in the incident except for the father, who was wearing the thickest plot armor at the time and escaped with minimal damage. Because of the storm, all the dead bodies are going to stay in the building overnight. Budiman is trying to catch a bus to the apartments, but none of the buses can go there due to the flooding. He says that going to the apartment is a matter of life and death. He learns of the elevator incident but says that something far more terrifying is about to happen. We see that he ain't messing around as he plans on going to the apartment fully strapped. We are introduced to this film's priest, whose name isn't Ustad like I thought in the previous film. Tony brings Tari her radio and we see that he's pretty awkward when it comes to the ladies. She listens to the radio, which plays a song by Mawarni called Secret of My Vengeance. She then hears her own voice on the radio saying that she can't escape her grave and that she is being tortured. She hears a small cry coming from inside of her apartment and sees something very disturbing. She gives the radio to Tony and asks him to get rid of it. Rini looks after Wisnu after his mother's death. He reveals that his abusive father died last year in a fire, making him an orphan. He shows her a mysterious book he found that taught him a secret language he would use to communicate with his mom so that his father wouldn't understand them. Bondi is with his friends when the lights to the apartment suddenly go out. They hear an unknown voice whispering something in the darkness. Rini goes looking for a light source and sees her father sound asleep. She uses the opportunity to try and open his mysterious suitcase but is unsuccessful. The priest runs into Tony and asks him to check on the victims who didn't have families. The terrified look on his face is hilarious and is the embodiment of this meme. Midway through, the priest says that his back is hurting and asks Tony to continue alone. Bondi and his friends try leaving the apartment but see that the first floor is completely flooded. They wonder why the building is so quiet now and go looking for other residents. They stumble inside the apartment of the neighborhood chief and go digging through his things. They learn that the building may have a secret floor that the stairs don't lead to. They see pictures on the wall of a cemetery located on the apartment's grounds. Every picture is dated April 17th, 29 years apart. They realize that today is April 16th and that tomorrow will be the 29th year since the last picture. They don't know the exact implications of what they've just discovered, but know that something sinister is going to happen once the clock strikes midnight. Tony heads to the 13th floor alone with a few matches to check on more victims. The atmosphere of the dark apartment complex is truly creepy, and when done right, a dark scene utilizing matches can be very effective, albeit a little cliche. He heads into Unit 1303 and his matches keep going out. He tries moving a body from underneath dripping water and gets spooked by a predictable yet effective jump scare. He runs into the boy named Dino, who asks him to do an odd favor. He wants Tony to climb into a hole in the wall and retrieve his mother's fork that fell into the other apartment. He retrieves the fork and finds an old photo album containing photos of the fertility cult and finds one of his mother's music records. Dari is alone in her apartment as the storm rages. As the thunder strikes, a woman briefly appears to be sitting behind her. She runs into the priest and tells him that she feels she was being haunted. Just as the priest told Rini in the first film, he tells her to fully surrender to Allah and pray. She goes to wash her face and is briefly transported into a tomb-like room. In a pretty trippy scene, she seems to be transported to a hellish place every time she bows. Several pocong appear right behind her and she runs out screaming into Tony. Ari's sister Wina hears a noise in the hallway and sees the ghosts of her friends playing hopscotch. She gets locked out of her apartment and cries out to her mother for help. She is then called out by an extremely creepy voice whom she believes to be her mom.
Ibu.
The elevator doors open and she naively steps inside. The doors close behind her, leaving her in pitch darkness. She lights up a match and her ghostly friends suddenly appear. She then tragically falls to her death. This was a very creepy and effective scene. The woman's voice calling out to her gave me genuine chills. Rini sneaks into her own apartment and tries to get her father's suitcase. She successfully grabs the key from her sleeping father. I haven't had that much anxiety since Woody tried to get his arm back. She reunites with Tony and they determine that they aren't safe with their father. Tony shows her the photo album and they see a photo of someone resembling their mother named Raminom. They open their father's suitcase and discover hundreds of fingers inside. They run out of the apartment and go look for Bondi as Dari and Dino try to leave the complex. Bondi and his friends go looking through apartment units to try and find the stairs leading to the secret floor. Tony and Rini go looking for Bondi in Ari's apartment and see Wina walking into the bathroom and disappears. They walk into the bedroom and find Ari's mother has taken her own life. Bondi and his friends find an open apartment where they find Ian creepily sitting alone like he's been waiting for him.
I've been waiting for you, Patrick!
Bondi experiences a full Vietnam flashback before running into the rest of his siblings. Rini asks Ian about what happened since the events of the previous film. All he remembers is that he was asleep and woke up sitting in the chair. Bondi thinks Ian is evil, but Rini still loves her little brother and takes him along. At the same time, all the dead bodies in the building reanimate into pochongs. Dino tries getting over the water to leave the building and Tari goes back looking for Tony. Dino goes back up the stairs and runs into Mawarni's spirit. He gets wrapped up in her shroud and sees her sinister face before falling backward onto a pitchfork, killing him. He was ironically killed by the thing he was desperately trying to get back, a fork. Dari goes looking for the others and runs into several pocong and Mawarni. She tries telling the priest what she saw and he gets killed as a result. She hides in the garbage chute and hears Mawarni's song playing on her old radio. A voice on the radio says that she is about to join them in hell. In a pretty disturbing scene, a pregnant pocong appears above her and the baby comes out of her mouth. Dari falls further into the chute until her body snaps in half, just as she saw herself earlier in the film. They run into their father, who says he can explain everything. It turns out that he is the Indonesian John Wick and the man responsible for the thousands of sniper killings across the country. He reveals that he was the one who got their mother to join the fertility cult and make a deal with Raminam. He says that everything he's done up to this point is to protect them. He sees Ian and tries smacking him with his cane. The group gets separated and the building is now filled with pocong and cult members as craziness ensues. The climax of this film is pretty wild, dark, and a little disappointing. A majority of the events are viewed through Rini's point of view as a camera repeatedly flashes reminiscent of the opening scene of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ian is seemingly leading a group of cult members as Bondi, Tony, and their father are kneeling on the ground. Ian feeds Rini a plant that causes her to go on a trip. She wakes up in a nice house and goes to college as if nothing ever happened. The professor says that she can have everything she wants as long as she stays here and forgets about her family. She manages to snap out of it and witnesses her father being brutally murdered. All his limbs are tied to horses, just like what was shown in an earlier picture. He says that he loves them all before being ripped apart. Tony is the next one to be tied up, but just like in the first film, Budiman arrives just in time to save the day. He comes in blasting and uses the odd trinket to blow Raminam away. Ian tries ordering the cult to attack them, but he is pushed by Wisnu and hilariously smacked by Rini. They run out of the room that was located on the 15th floor. They get on a boat and finally escape the complex that is now completely surrounded by water. Budiman reveals that their father asked Mawarni to join the cult so they could have children and so she could become famous. He tried to terminate the deal with Raminam, but the cost was 1,000 lives, which is why he became the Indonesian John Wick. Budiman says that a much more sinister agenda is brewing and that he is going to tell them everything in the sequel. In the film's final scene, Darmina and her husband arrive at the apartment complex. Darmina says they should have been there last night, but he says everything went according to plan. She says that people will be confused as to whose side they're on, not revealing if they are good or evil. The couple once again start dancing as the camera zooms in on a picture of them attending the Bandung conference of 1955. This shows that whatever their mysterious plan is, they are able to manipulate politics and the outcome of international events. This possibly relates to the sinister plan Budiman referred to that will be revealed in a sequel as the movie ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Satan Slaves 2 Communion. My friends, I was a huge fan of the first film and was really looking forward to this sequel. I can honestly say that I was a little let down by this film. I feel that the film wasn't as focused as the first. They introduced too many new uninteresting characters that took away from the focus of the main family. The film also took a really long time to get going and didn't really have a great payoff story-wise. However, I am still looking forward to this movie's sequel and where the story goes from here. With all that said, it was still a decent film that offered up a few good scares throughout, though some of them were rehashed from the first, giving Satan Slaves 2 Communion a clean scare score of 70%. The scariest scene in the film was when Weena was drawn out into the hallway and encountered the spirits of her dead friends. The visuals in this scene were pretty haunting, and I am going to hear the voice calling out to her in my nightmares for several weeks to come. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for tuning in, and I cannot wait to see y'all right back here in the horror mine. Y'all stick around.